Mario! The Super Mario franchise has been a staple in gaming culture for nearly 40 years, since the original 1985 game. While not the first time the famous plumbers graced the gaming market, it skyrocketed their careers into selling millions upon millions of cartridges, re-releases, ports, what have you. Being a cultural phenomenon, of course it would generate many sequels and spin-offs, whether they be sports games, kart racers, fighting games, and artwork. Everybody young and old has played at least one of these games in their lives, including me. As far as I remember, my first exposure to the franchise was New Super Mario Bros. Wii 14 years ago. Yeah, if Super Mario Bros. Wonder taught us anything, is that the new branding on these games is definitely dead. Wait, my girl Daisy is playable?
I'll take your entire stock!
With a game IP as big as Mario, it leaves you to wonder, how the hell did it take Nintendo nearly 4 decades to finally give the movie people wanted from Super Mario? Well, my dearest viewers, it's because their first attempt was such a colossal shit show that they didn't even bother making movies up until recently. And thanks to the animated movie's success at the box office, cracking $1.3 billion, yes, $1.3 billion with a B, they're planning on releasing more Nintendo films in the future, which most definitely include sequels. As a matter of fact, there's word of a full animated trilogy being made, according to the actor, for French Bowser. I deeply apologize for that. Of course, nothing's been confirmed yet, and it'll probably take a while, depending on if thin-skinned CEOs will finally get their shit together and give the hard-working actors and writers a fair deal. Regardless, sequels and spin-offs to this film will now be more likely than ever, not just for the financial success, but the potential Nintendo has in adapting their most popular brands into movies that isn't the 1993 acid trip. Now, with all that said and done, why the fuck doesn't this movie get enough love? Look at this, it has a whopping 59% on Rotten Tomatoes, even though it has an audience score of 95. It deserved so much better. At least I would say that if I was an annoying ass grifter on Twitter who uses the same movies for an animation as cinema tweet and completely disregards the whole point of Guillermo del Toro's speech at the Oscars. Also, this frame is giving me thumbnail material, and I hate it. The build-up and aftermath of the Super Mario Bros. Movie has been quite a thrilling adventure, but instead of an adventure to save a captured princess, or Luigi, it was an adventure of whether or not this was even gonna be good. From being announced in collaboration with Illumination to the infamous casting direct, trailers that were coming, and so was Bowser, the massive marketing campaign, the fucking annoying culture war discussions, the movie finally releasing to enormous success, and the impact it left on social media. But did it truly deserve better? Spoilers, it doesn't. It earned like all the money in the world. I think they're fine with this. Today I'll mostly go into the long but crazy journey of this film we had to go through, and how it stands among the many failed video game adaptations, as well as Illumination's current catalog of movies. And since we gotta start somewhere, I guess I gotta acknowledge the first theatrical Mario movie, so I don't know, let's go. Yeah, you know, it's a me.
I finally found it, and now no one can stop me!
We're the Mario Brothers, and plumbing's a game. We're not like the others who get all the fame.
At the peak of the franchise's popularity, British production company Leitmotiv obtained the rights to make a Mario movie under Hollywood Pictures, with consideration for letting Nintendo take creative control. However, they instead gave them the creative freedom, believing the brand was strong enough for experimentation. I think we all know what happens next. The movie went through a hellish production history, but to make this story long enough to make a documentary on short, it went through several revisions and constant rewrites unbeknownst to the cast members. Some of said cast members got injured during filming, Bob Hoskins could not catch a break, the budget gradually increasing when changes were made, and just a significant amount of unprofessionalism from the crew that really screwed things over for the movie. It certainly didn't help either that it was released around the time Jurassic Park first came out, out, and well, it turned out to be one big pile of shit. Critically panned and becoming a box office bomb that barely made back its budget were enough for Nintendo to steer clear of adapting any of their games into movies for years. There were a few attempts at adapting the Legend of Zelda games though, like an animated movie by Umaji, a live-action series with Netflix, along with a stop-motion Star Fox series by College Humor were in consideration. But they went nowhere, as the former was shut down due to the financial failure of Astro Boy, and the latter two shows got leaked online, causing them to get cancelled. Yes, that's the real reason, look it up. One may seem surprised that Nintendo didn't make as many adaptations of their games post-93, aside from some frankly bizarre television shows. But when looking at stuff like Street Fighter, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, or Uwe Ball movies, turning video games into feature-length films wasn't exactly an easy task, in terms of it being a good adaptation for fans of a certain game, or accessible enough for outsiders to gain appreciation for it as it stands, neither of which was accomplished. While plenty of these movies were financially successful, they weren't nearly as successful with the general public, garnering a track record where the best adaptations of a game would mostly be considered okay, which really tells you how low the bar was set for these. Fortunately, and hopefully, it seems that some video game adaptations gained a bit of a resurgence in quality in recent times, not just with films but also TV, such as Arcane based off of League of Legends, the Sonic the Hedgehog movies reigning box office supreme, and even some of the more infamous ones like the 1993 Mario movie gained somewhat of an ironic cult following behind it, what with the batshit insanity of the whole thing.
Monkey!
But as the Mario franchise grew, so did we. And after many games were made over the years to expand the legacy, it wouldn't be until years later when it was confirmed that Nintendo was finally giving cinematic releases a second chance. But not without collaboration from another outsider. This outsider, of all outsiders, was supposed to be Sony Pictures. Stay with me on this. Apparently almost a decade ago, the Sony Pictures hack happened where thousands of emails and confidential information were leaked by a member of the Guardians of Peace in retaliation for the release of Seth Rogen's political satire, The Interview. One of these leaks included negotiations of an animated Mario movie for Sony Pictures Animation, with a closed deal and even photos seemingly proving this as legit. However, the movie got quietly scrapped, which was probably for the best, because I can't imagine what a Sony-made movie based on a Nintendo IP would be like, especially on the console side of things. We really were this close to getting Super Mario on the PS4! But this raises a very important question. If Sony wouldn't do a movie, then who would? In 2018, it was further confirmed that an animated movie was finally being made with someone else. But who was this someone? It was Illumination. I was just fucking with you. The French animation studio Illumination Entertainment, known for the massively successful Despicable Me movies and the most epic movie ever made, Minions: The Rise of Gru, were announced to be in partnership with Nintendo, and pretty much everyone lost all hope in the movie ever reaching their expectations. Not to mention, it was announced at the time people started to catch on to Illumination's strategy of making safe, mediocre films that happen to be a money-printing formula for a lot of animated kids films of the 2010s. So a Mario movie made by them and Nintendo didn't exactly sound like the best pairing. On the contrary, it was like, I don't know, pairing water with hot oil, I guess? I don't know, what the hell do you want from me? And just when we thought enough hope was lost, we wouldn't hear much about the movie since the announcement. Until that one fateful day.
It's me. A Mario.
Dad, what did you think?
I think you're nuts.
Alrighty then, so picture that it's September 23rd, 2021, right? Like 2 years ago now, holy shit. You got back home after a long, tiring day of school, and then you go to YouTube and see this. You proceed to Google check it to see if it's from a real source, and yeah, it turns out to be real. This news made you do one of the three things: laugh your ass off, flip your shit, or made you confused. Or realistically, all three at once. No one, I repeat, no one expected this to be a thing. I feel like this Nintendo Direct announcement needed a dedicated segment in the video, because it fully emphasizes how fucking nuts this announcement was. Like, you don't just leave a steady job to chase some crazy— oh, I'm sorry, I meant You don't just expect Chris Pratt and Mario to be said in the same sentence when talking about a movie like this, but there we were. So many people were confused on how or why these celebrities were cast, particularly why Chris Pratt, out of literally anyone, was chosen for this role when Charles Martinet was also casted among them. Alright, you see, it's among them, not among us. The casting for this got so controversial that Chris himself responded to the backlash with hopes that once people see the movie, their criticisms about his voice would disappear. Well, it seemed like it was never gonna work for anyone, but it did work for one group of people. Shit posters.
Guys, I played the new FNAF, and it's pretty good.
December 22nd, 2022, the day of the Super Mario Bros. Movie couldn't come any sooner. It got delayed. Anyway, it was left dormant yet again. Not much else aside from the casting and delay was known about it since. So we waited, and waited, and waited. Until we finally got our very first look at New York Comic Con 2022 on October 6th. Oh my god, okay, it's happening. Everybody calm down. This is it. The moment of truth. It all led up to this. Come on, Illumination, we're ready. Give us your worst. It looked good. It looked like the games. It felt like the games. It sounded like the games. Oh my god. It's not shit. It's not shit! And then people heard the Mario voice.
Mushroom Kingdom, here we come.
That's cringe! Why would they cast him?
People did not favor the voice very well, with many taking to Twitter, oh, sorry, I meant X, to further show their frustration with the casting choice. Fuck you, Elon Musk. Of course, knowing the internet, the hopes of people's beef with the voice disappearing was wishful thinking. To be fair, it was only just a few snippets of the voice, and maybe he'll sound better in the next trailer. That's it? That's gonna be his voice? That was just a bunch of cheap first takes! At least that's how most would describe it. Fans were displeased yet again, and the funny thing is that in other dubs of the trailers, particularly the French dub, his voice actor is actually spot on.
Royaume Champignon, nous voilà!
It practically sounded just like Charles Martinet. It was perfect, but this was just Chris Pratt playing Mario like how he played Emmett in the Lego movies. But given that he is just a regular, normal, ordinary guy, it made sense that Chris would therefore use his regular, normal, ordinary voice. This was in contrast to what Chris said prior to the trailers, where his voice would be unlike anything you've heard before. This was on top of him also stating at the trailer's direct that he was a big fan of the games growing up. Man, he spent hours of his life stomping Koopas in the original Super Mario Bros. Arcade game at his local laundromat. Putting aside Mario's voice for a moment among other casting oddities though, the trailers themselves looked promising. It was clear that Nintendo was holding Illumination at gunpoint for them to have made it look this good, am I right guys?
That's funny.
The movie actually looked like what people wanted from a Mario movie, a fun, colorful, and faithful adaptation that takes advantage of being animated by delivering a lot, and I mean a lot, of fan service. Look, it's Rainbow Road from Mario Kart. They even reference the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, you know the one.
And if you do drugs, you go to hell before you die.
You what?
The marketing in general went all out on the fact that this was indeed a Mario movie, with references to popular and deep-cut assets of the franchise's history, including the near-perfect score that captures what a cinematic rendition of the classic tunes would sound like. The hype gradually grew stronger and stronger and stronger. It got strong enough to a point where people's worries about the movie possibly not meeting their expectations disappeared. And when it finally graced the big screen on April 5th, 2023, this apparently shocked everyone, which appropriately brings us to...
Oh my... Ah! Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay.
Now you die.
Well shit, we're back at square one for this segment, the tweet that partially inspired me to make the video, as it transitions us to the topic of toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is when someone annihilates any negative emotions from whatever they're attached to. In a twist of irony, it creates more negativity for anyone who might have a different opinion about the thing that someone's attached to. There are way too many examples of this, especially when it comes to animated movies and just movies in general. They'll always have that one fandom that loves a thing so much that even saying something vaguely negative about it will get you in these scenarios. The Mario movie is one of the best examples of this topic being effective, as more trailers and clips arrived showing off just how well they've translated different parts of the franchise to film. Many took to X to pit films like the Sonic the Hedgehog movies against Mario in terms of how they work as adaptations. But like, two good things can exist, right? This exact thing ironically happened with Sonic the Hedgehog 2, where people got defensive over a movie that I guarantee you they didn't even watch yet, and wouldn't you know it, the people who endlessly complain about reviewers having an opinion on the movie did not watch the movie at all. Wow, color me shocked. Like, I'm actually shocked, you guys. You can clearly hear the enthusiasm in my voice right now. Things didn't get any better when it actually came out, with the Rotten Tomatoes website starting off with a critic score of 47%. Rather than take into account that the critic score is supposed to count the percentage of critics who liked the movie, several fans were quick to complain about the fact that the Super Mario Bros. Movie isn't exactly a movie made for everyone. Professional critics, casuals, or both were targeted by these fans either for doing their job or just generally not liking it that much. YourMovieSucks.org, for instance, made a negative review of the movie. He pretty much spent half of the video summing up the insane amount of whiny babies policing people over a kids movie that they didn't even watch. Once more, after the review went public, literally everyone proved his point with the backlash it received just from this one out of context clip of the video posted on Twitter. Granted, he gives a take that I didn't particularly agree with. There's a lot of stuff I didn't agree with in the video, but for the most part, he gives a decent point about how it's fine to enjoy the movie so long as you don't obsess over it to a point of making it your identity. But that's not what Twitter wants you to know now, is it? Nah, instead they want you to know that he compared the movie to a Friedberg/Seltzer film as if that's more important than the fact that there are actual fans of the movie who would unironically go out of their way to attack someone just to feel validated about their opinion on the Mario movie. Again, it's not a great comparison, but what I'm trying to say is that if you're unironically upset and feel validated to harass a person who says they generally didn't like a fucking Mario movie for kids, then I have nothing else to say except, well, grow up. You can still enjoy the movie for as flawed as it may be without harassing anyone who have opinions on it. Don't take this video or any other video on the movie as proof of its definitive quality. You just watch the movie, form your opinion, keep it as that, and move on, please. The only thing that we should all collectively agree on, especially when it comes to the Mario movie, is the fact that Grace Randolph—
When could Mario turn into a cat? I guess, like, if you're into furries?
Yeah, she sucks. Okay, so I won't dwell on this topic for too long because quite frankly, I don't give a shit. Culture war discussions regarding media is something that would take an entire video in of itself for me to talk about. Too bad it's never gonna happen, as more often than not, these discussions end up being really, really dumb. To those unaware of what this has to do with the culture wars, back when the second trailer went public, we got our first glimpse of what Princess Peach's new personality was, and I do emphasize the word personality. This was something that apparently outraged some people. Take a wild guess on what group of people it outraged.
Which was right here. It's like Bo Peep, Ray Skywalker. You got Peach just taking charge. Peach just taking charge. Stands up. Right there.
What they ultimately failed to realize was that this isn't even the first time Princess Peach acted like a badass. She acted this way in the Nintendo Power comics, and the movie expands her character further with the new personality. But as per usual with these anti-woke SJWs, they take this as an opportunity to misuse the forbidden term to describe how they could have possibly done this, with countless videos on the fact that she's independent, strong, and capable of kicking ass. But the moment the movie became a massive success, success, they immediately dropped their bitching and decided to bring Disney of all people into this argument once again, because you know, it's what they're known for. The Super Mario movie was enough of a success to make the woke Disney Corporation wet their pants. Little did they know, however, that the people who work at Disney, including Bob Iger, actually congratulated the movie for being a success. Wow, it's almost as if animation studios and companies don't actually have a secret beef with one another. Consider this as a clapback to both the anti-woke shitheads and the people who pit animation studios against each other like the console wars. You wanna know the stupidest part of this whole discourse? It's not their belief of Disney's jealousy of the movie's success, it's the complete 180 they've turned from ripping it a new warp hole for Peach Skywalker to praising it left and right the moment it made its money back. So is it woke or anti-woke? The obvious answer is neither, but I just find it funny that these idiots were so inept to what agenda they pushed that they couldn't decide on whether or not we should be rooting for or against the movie. Whatever, it's just another reason why conservatives of this type don't deserve to be on a social media platform like YouTube or Twitter. It's dumb. That's it. It's just really dumb.
You really thought you could stop me? You worthless, weak little...
As of the making, it's been 6 months since the movie came out, and the hype has long since died down. But what about the movie as a whole? What should have been the spaghetti and meatballs of the video ended up being the dessert left by Princess Peach in Mario 64. After the batshit insanity of its conception, the fandom, and the legendary memes, was it all worth it for this film? In my honest opinion, yes and no. On one hand, there's clear heart and passion to be seen in the movie both from a visual standpoint because holy shit, this is incredible animation, it belongs in a movie theater, and as an adaptation of the games. It's everything a fan could ask for and more. On the other hand, however, it's also a complete mess. Kinda. Apparently this movie also went through some production issues, as with pretty much every movie ever. A writer who worked on the movie, Matthew Fogel to be precise, explained on the gaming forum Resetera.com a list of notes on the movie's production. The notes of which included his acknowledgement of the movie's issues, and what they wanted for it that ultimately didn't make the final cut. When looking further into the movie itself and piecing together the notes with its biggest issues, yeah, it kinda makes sense. The movie has poor pacing that goes too fast. It zips from one location to the next without proper room to breathe, and on top of the fact that some fully finished instrumentals that beautifully captured the game's soundtrack were replaced with licensed songs for some reason, there's barely any character moments or development for anyone outside of the titular character. Just when you think a character moment happens, it just doesn't. It sacrifices them in favor of moving on to the next set piece. Stuff like Peach's backstory where she came from Earth as a baby, giving Mario a sense of relatability, dropped and on to the next set piece. A scene where Mario and Donkey Kong lament on their conflicting relationship with their fathers, dropped and on to the next set piece. Luigi doing anything for the next hour after that graphic, on to the next set piece. Like, come on Nintendo, give him a subplot or something. Of course, many will use Illumination as an easy scapegoat for how undercooked the movie feels overall, but I'd like to imagine Nintendo also had some conflicting creative decisions as well. A lot seems to have been cut from the movie because I guess they were worried kids wouldn't want to watch a movie that's over 90 minutes, despite other kids' movies having longer runtimes that they still end up watching anyway. That isn't to say having a good movie under 90 minutes isn't possible, but all this is to say the movie definitely needed a better script and pacing. Also, no, saying it's a Mario movie doesn't excuse shit. You can still have a movie based on the Mario Bros. With all the neat throwbacks and references and Donkey Kong and that Jack Black song that's eligible to win an Oscar. You can work all of these elements and more into a way better script with way better pacing. However, in spite of its flaws, I feel that the worst a Mario movie could have been, in my opinion, is boring, and thankfully the movie is everything but. It is still a really fun time, and it's easy to admire the attention to detail when it comes to being a love letter to everything Mario stands for. The way they integrated iconic assets of the series into the world building is nothing short of fantastic and clever, some of the best use of fan service in an adaptation, I'd say. Performances were also surprisingly decent too. Some obvious standouts include Jack Black and Charlie Day, but as great as their performances are, I feel like Kevin Michael Richardson doesn't get nearly enough appreciation. His performance as Kamek is just mwah. perfect casting. He plays the role amazingly.
You don't deserve this, but you're invited to the royal wedding! Yay! Where you will all be ritualistically sacrificed!
And Chris?
What about the accents? Is it too much?
Too much? It's a decent! Wahoo! Not exactly a great performance, his accent is a little inconsistent, but I feel people overreacted at the voice. Although yes, it is still a weird casting choice looking back, made even weirder when actually watching the movie, but his performance was fine, I guess.
Oh, what? I'm a cat?
Mario and Luigi's dynamic was nice. For what little there was of it, it was really sweet just seeing them stick out for one another. Would have been great if we spent more time with them together, although there's a lot of things in the movie we needed more of, like the dinner scene. It definitely feels like a movie made exclusively for fans of the games and kids rather than professional critics or really anyone else. It relies pretty heavily on brand recognition with many assets that might be confusing to anyone without the most surface level knowledge of the franchise, but in all honesty, it's still good brand recognition as it shows the creator's passionate love for Super Mario and what makes the games fun, delivered with some absolutely stunning animation. While it's not guaranteed to satisfy everyone, there's enough to satisfy most casual and diehard fans. Could it have been better? Yeah, but at the same time, it could have been way worse, like on par with what everyone says about other video game adaptations before it. As it is, though, it's still a very solid 6 out of 10, or maybe a 7 if I'm nice enough. Given how much has already been said about the movie, I'm debating on whether or not I should talk about it again in the future. Maybe I might take my chances and somehow review every video game movie ever made, but for now, if you were one of the 10 people who had the burning question of what I had to say about the Super Mario Bros. Movie, it's fun. Nothing more. Other than the fact that this movie was absolutely not worth white knighting and harassing people over. My god. Grow up. And get a job. Just like me.
Hey! Hey! That is not cool!
Ah! He got the blue mushroom!
Okay, this took me way longer to write than I thought, but yeah. That was quite a ride. All of this shit for a movie that ended up being one of the better video game movies, but not exactly anything to write home about. Though with how big of a hit it was, both financially and to some extent with fans, it's definitely going to be revolutionary for Nintendo. Illumination, on the other hand, will the quality of their future output change after supposedly one decent movie? I'm not gonna count on it just yet, but we'll see. As of the making, there are 2 upcoming Illumination movies that the public seem to know about. Migration, a film about ducks, and Despicable Me 4. They both seem to be what most would expect from Illumination's output, though Migration, aside from being their first original film since 2016, has the director of Ernest and Celestine and the White Lotus creator behind it as a writer, so maybe it has potential. I mean, it looks pretty, and it actually has good character designs, so maybe it'll be a hidden gem. Sadly, the only way they could possibly market the movie is to constantly remind you, guys, remember Despicable Me? Remember Sing? Well, here's a new original IP that we haven't done since 2016. Guys, did you know that the creators of Despicable Me are doing it? Did you know? Like, seriously, they couldn't just announce something without having to inject a shot of Minions into it. I'm surprised they didn't even do this with Mario. There's also an adult-oriented division being developed, so they're definitely cooking something interesting. Perhaps when this movie does get a sequel, it could potentially improve on aspects of the first. Maybe we'll see more character development and better pacing next time. Or alternatively, it could just be another Despicable Me situation. We really don't know. What we do know for sure is that the movie will definitely be remembered for years to come, in many ways good or bad. But more importantly, it'll also be remembered for being the final project for Charles Martinet, the original voice of Mario, and many of the franchise's most iconic characters, who recently moved on to the position of Mario Ambassador, stepping down as the voice actor for any upcoming projects, leaving these lines in the Super Mario Bros. Movie to be the last time we got to hear his voice. For now.
These are my boys! Hey!
I like turtles. Now that's a happy ending. Or is it? Because everything's over now. And all that's left is you and the infinite void.